Hey everyone, first quarter 2023 earnings season continues. Thanks to everyone who asked for a video on Lam Research. This is not one we have covered yet here on Stock Investor, and I think it's important we do so. So, as you may know, Lam Research falls in the semiconductor equipment makers, a very important segment. We feel a very important segment and portion of the semiconductor industry, as you know from past videos, sits at this critical choke point in the industry where if you want to make chips, you have to go to Lam Research and one of its very select peers to get your fab up to date and ready with the most advanced equipment to make those most advanced and energy efficient chips. Think the stuff in our smartphones, data centers that power AI, and the like. So, Lam Research, a highly profitable business, but one that is very cyclical. We'll jump to this tree map here that we've been using from Applied Materials' recent presentation. As you can see here, Lam Research, which is the segment in green. Lam Research provides equipment in a number of different areas, which puts it in competition with companies like Tokyo Electron, that's the one in yellow, as well as Applied Materials, currently one of our top chip stocks, one of our top stocks, period, that we're buying right now, but one of our top chip stocks, that's in blue, as well as KLA Core there in orange. So Lam Research specifically provides machines in deposition. Basically, one key area there is it works in tandem with ASML. It helps deposit the material that reacts with that EUV and other ultraviolet lights that ASML's machine shine onto a silicon wafer to create those very small microscopic patterns on silicon chips. Also, etch, you can see a big chunk there. Lam Research gobbles up in the etch department over and above what Tokyo Electron and Applied Materials supplies. A little bit in the process and diagnostic control market there on the far right as well. So Lam Research, as you can see from that tree map, very critical part of this segment of the chip manufacturing equipment industry. But you might be wondering, if you looked at Lam Research's quarterly earnings report from this past week, pretty ugly numbers. I'll share those with you in just a moment. But in light of this, you might be wondering, why in the world has this stock run up more than 50%? What is going on after such an ugly quarter and really an outlook for things to get even worse in the next quarter or two? What's up? Why is the stock rallying so hard? Well, bear in mind that Lam Research was a big beneficiary from the chip shortage the last couple of years. But there's a bit of a delay for a company like Lam. Those pieces of equipment it manufactures, they're big, they're complicated, they're very expensive. So from the time that they get an actual order from a manufacturer, say Samsung or Micron Technology, from the time they receive an order from a company like that to the time they actually complete the equipment, ship it, install it in their customer's fab, it could be many months. So Lam is actually coming off of peak financial results from the chip shortage in its quarter ended in Q4 2022. So just 4-5 months ago, as of this recording, Lam is coming down from that peak. Let me run through the numbers for you in the quarter that just wrapped up in March 2023. Okay, so revenue was $3.87 billion. That's down 27% from last quarter, Q4 2022, Q4 calendar year 2022, and down 5% year over year. Gross margin was 41.5%, down from 45% last quarter and down from 44.7% the same quarter last year. And GAAP earnings per share were $6 and a penny, down 44% from last quarter and down 18% year over year. Again, big quarter over quarter drops, especially in earnings per share, down 44%. But remember, the December 2022 quarter was peak chip shortage revenue for Lam Research. So it's coming off of those high points in pretty dramatic fashion. But it's always the future that makes much more difference than what already happened. So was it Lam's outlook for the next 3 months that is causing the stock to rally? Not exactly. Things are actually expected to get worse for next quarter. This is the 3 months that will end in June 2023. Revenue at the midpoint expected to be 3.1 billion. That would be down 33% year over year. Gross profit margin, actually a bit of sequential improvement, 43.2% versus 45.3% last year, but certainly up from the 41% in the March quarter. And then earnings per share of $4.32. That's basically half of what Lam reported a year ago. So huge drops in this next quarter coming up, which means Lam Research currently trading for about 14, 15 times trailing 12-month earnings per share, about 18 times trailing 12-month free cash flow. Basically, what that means, this is not a cheap stock because earnings and free cash flow are probably going to get worse for the next quarter or two. So why is the stock rallying so much? Well, remember, it's the future, and specifically with semiconductor companies, it's not the immediate future. These companies have a lot of insight 6 to 12 months down the road. So the market tends to value them based on not what's presently happening or expected to happen in the next 3 months, but rather the expectation 6 to 12 months down the road. So here's what we know is happening right now. Historically, over half of Lam Research's revenue comes from memory chip makers. Again, like I mentioned a moment ago, companies like Micron, Samsung, SK Hynix. In this latest quarter, the revenue from memory chip makers fell to 32% of revenue. That's because companies like Micron, like SK Hynix, they've been cutting their expected spending on equipment this year as they manage through an absolutely nasty, totally ugly downturn for memory chips. There's just too much supply out there on the market, too much supply in the smartphone market, too much supply in PCs and laptops. Memory is taking it on the chin. And these companies are dramatically cutting their supply and cutting their expected spending this year on equipment. So that has dried up a large portion of Lam Research's revenue. But the memory market is kind of funny. Whenever companies like Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung start cutting production, it basically tees up the next phase of expansion for the memory market. Basically, a period where there's too little supply for the demand, and basically that means rising memory prices, rising profitability, and that's when companies like Micron, SK Hynix, and Samsung go out and spend lots of money on equipment, like with Lam Research. So that's not happening this year, but the expectation is by 2024, the next upcycle has begun for memory chips, and Lam Research is firing on all cylinders again. In addition to that, a lot of legislation has been made in the United States, in the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and other countries. They are all interested in bringing semiconductor manufacturing within their borders. There's the US CHIPS Act, roughly $52 billion being earmarked for the semiconductor industry. The European Union just passed the EU CHIPS Act. That's worth 42 billion euros. Japan and South Korea have both announced big plans to expand manufacturing as well. And Those fabs are currently being planned. Some of them, construction has broken ground, but these things take 3 to 5 years to complete. So that means in the next 3 to 5 years, companies like Lam Research will have a lot of new equipment to sell their customers. Currently in 2023, that's not happening, but it's coming. I'll show you just one last screenshot here. This is from my ticker terminal on Lam Research's expected revenue through 2027. Now, mind you, these are Wall Street analyst expectations, so these are not actuals, but you can see basically revenue flatlining from 2022 through mid 2023. That's the current fiscal year, falling a bit in the fiscal 2024 year. That's the period that will end next June 2024, before the company starts hitting new all-time revenue highs through 2027. And not just a little bit in new all-time revenue highs, significantly more revenue. Basically, this expectation, Lam Research could hit $24 billion a year in revenue by fiscal 2027. June, the period ending in June 2027. And along with that, record profit margins, record earnings per share, record free cash flow. Big things expected for Lam Research in the next 3 to 5 years. I actually think this makes a ton of sense. We've said it on this channel before, and I'll say it again. We really believe the semiconductor manufacturing equipment companies, much more so than the semiconductor manufacturers themselves, will gobble up a large proportion of the profits in the next 3 to 5 years in the chip industry as these new fabs get constructed. Companies like Lam Research are highly profitable, even in a downturn like we're experiencing right now. And with this coming boom in new fab construction around the world, I think revenue and profits go sky high for companies like Lam. That being said, I think 2023 is going to be a pretty bumpy year. The stock price has already rallied quite a bit and has priced in some of this growth that's expected, or I should say some of the rebound that's expected headed into the second half of this year and the first half of 2024, calendar year 2024. So Lam Research is not on our buy list. I still like the company's peer, Applied Materials. We also just did the update on ASML. We currently are not buying ASML at this point in time, but I do like ASML stock a bit more than I like Lam Research. And overall, we like this niche of the semiconductor industry so much, we're putting together a custom index covering all of the stocks that play in the semiconductor manufacturing equipment space. So Casey has been hard at work at that. We have that coming to you here within the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, earnings season rolls on. So see you again later this week.